tiny little bit about me. My name is Karen, and I've been a primary school teacher now for about 20 years, mainly working in Key Stage 1, reception and lower Key Stage 2. I love being outdoors, and some of you might recognise my face because I work at Kerrymore Environmental Trust. And I know there are lots of schools out there who come and visit us, so you may have been with us at some point in the last 4 years. Also, I work with Somerset Waste Partnership, and we do a programme called Schools Against Waste. So I might well have been in to do an assembly at some point in your school or done some workshops. So I was asked to take part in this project about 72 hours ago. So it's been a frantic few days, but really with the aim of working with a lot of other brilliant people who've been giving me lots of plans and ideas and thoughts on this, and drawing them all together so that I can hopefully put together a plan that you guys can take out and use when you're working with your small groups out there. So what I'm going to try to do now is turn off my camera, and I'm going to share with you some slides. So let's see if we can make this work. Okay, so hopefully you are all seeing what I can see right now. So the aims of today's session are to develop your confidence in working with children outdoors. That's the main thing, really. If you haven't done so before, working outside with children can be really, really daunting. There are lots of different health and safety concerns to think about: the weather, the fact there are no walls, no boundaries. And I will never forget my first teaching placement, where I took a group out and told them to run around, and that is exactly what they did, and I couldn't get them back together again. It was chaos. And another aim of our session is to give you some top tips. Some of these will sadly be a repeat of things that you've already heard, but hopefully there'll be some new ones in there. And finally, the third aim is to dive into the plans for week 1 and to really talk through those plans. Okay, so tips. Number 1, establish those boundaries for your space. We talked a lot about this yesterday. In some way, you need to try and create the walls of your outdoor space. So this might be a hedge, a chalk line on the playground, some hazard tape between cones, but really important that the children know where those boundaries are and that they need to stay within them. My second top tip would be to create a social distancing sit-spot circle. At Kerrymore, we use carpet mats, so we went to a carpet shop and got some offcuts, but you might try to use foam mats and cut those up. That could be an idea. And also drawing circles on the floor in chalk, or maybe having a hula hoop for children to sit in. All of these ways of making a circle for them to know where they need to be, where they're sitting. Number 3, definitely bring a whistle or something that makes a loud noise, because that is going to really save your voice. When we're outside, our voices really disappear. So that whistle is really essential there. 1 whistle freeze, 2 whistles come back over to your sit spot. And a lot of the games in the first week's plan really focus on that. If you've been to Kerrymore, you know that I love nothing more than a call and response. This really helps to bring the children's focus back onto you and what you're doing. So something like twit and twoo, that call and response might work well, but perhaps your group would want to make up their own call and response and have that ownership over that. I'm sure you've all got lots of ideas as well from your teaching, from your work with children. So 1, 2, 3, look at me, clapping a rhythm, all of those things can be really, really useful for refocusing the children. And finally, I think probably the most important thing is that whatever you're doing is done with as much positivity and humour as possible. Certainly, things will go wrong. And there have been many times over the years that I've got to the end of a session and have thought, oh gosh, that could really have gone a lot better. There are so many variables outside: the weather, the children, you, random creatures turning up in the middle of things. Go with it, brush it off, move on, and yeah, don't dwell on things that haven't gone right. Just really focus on those things that have gone right. Another thing that I think is really important for consistency is taking those reward systems that you're using in the classroom all the time and using those outdoors as well. So things like house points and team points and golden time, all of those things can still be used outside. So if we now dive into the plans, I want to make it really clear that these aren't forest school plans. They've got elements of forest school about them, but they really are a resource that I hope you feel you can use to work outside with your group of children. There's so many things out there that you could be doing, so many activities and ideas online and in books. And what I've tried to do over the last 3 days is bring together a set of 8 or 9 activities that cover all areas of the curriculum in an imaginative way and provide a sense of progression from one day to the next. So the first week's theme is going to be community. And to explore this theme, I've created a fictional family of troglets. So these are meant to be imaginary creatures that live in your school grounds. And the ideas of friendship, feelings, gratitude, loneliness, kindness, these are all going to be focused on in week 1. The health and well-being of the children is really at the core of each of these plans and will continue to be so throughout the coming weeks. So the structure of the plans. Each of the plans follows a structure, but it's going to be really up to you. Firstly, if you want to use them at all, and secondly, what you pick and choose to do from each plan. So this is just an idea, a skeleton of a session for you, really. So first of all, they usually start with the establishment of routines and expectations. And just like in the classroom, we know that routines help keep children feeling safe and secure. So I think that is really, really important. I've suggested a routine that goes something like toilet, wash hands, a bit of a song, gathering all your kit, then going outside, forming your circle, maybe singing another good morning song, a call and response, and an explanation of what's going to keep us safe during the session. So what's next then on the plan? Well, I've got some games down next, and I think that's a great way to start a session, break the ice and create that real positive feel, and hopefully some laughter too. Nancy is going to be talking to you after myself about the SAS resources that have been developed for you to use. Following that, there's a health and wellbeing activity, and this really is the core of each session, what everything else is going to be hanging on. So this would be something I'd say please try to get in there if you are using the plans. On from that, we've got lots of activities that touch on different areas of the curriculum. And this again is a do what works for you. There's definitely no one size fits all. These plans don't take account of your breaks and your snack time, the children that you're working with, all the other things that are going on in your day. I'd say if the children are enjoying an activity and they're absorbed in it, just let them go with that. Really let them experience that state of flow and that relaxation that they get from that. If they finish an activity in 2 seconds, move on, it's fine. There's lots of activities to choose from in there. Then sort of creating a bit of a sandwich effect, we've got some more games that you can choose from. And following on from that, time for reflection. So this could be a circle time, it could be some form of meditation, or maybe even a yoga pose or two. I can sense there's going to be some horror out there at that idea, but all of these resources will be provided for you, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And finally, some songs. Now, if you hate singing, don't sing. Don't force yourself to sing. It might be that you prefer to tell a joke instead, or do a team chant, or say a rhyme that makes everyone laugh. But it's a way of ending the the session on a positive note. So the plans start with a resource section, and there are three parts to that. There are resources that hopefully you can collect from around school. There are also going to be video resources available on the SSE website eventually, and there are printable resources that go with every single day that has been planned. So the plans are already up on the SSE website, but what I'm going to try to do with you now is come out of this and share the first day's plan with you. So let's see if I can make this work. Okay, here we go. I think that's the one. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the first day now in front of you. And at the top, you've got the overview, what the session is about and the key objectives, the key things that we're going to be looking at. Then you can see the resources there that you might want to try and collect. And certainly that part of it, I think you'll end up probably with a big kit of stuff that accumulates over the days and over the weeks. And that can really be your kit bag with all the things that we tend to use all the time. Under that, you can see establishing expectations. Now, there's a little time bracket next to these things. Again, ignore that, really. On the first day, it might take you 60 minutes to get outside and get yourselves in a circle and ready to go. By the third week, it might be that it's 10 minutes. So these things are going to change over time. You can then see the next activity too. We've got some games. We've got a social distancing game. And all the steps in that game. Again, then we've got a game called Catch a Clap, which is a really fun game, and this will be filmed for you to see an example of on the SSE website. We've then got activity 3, which is our health and well-being and the introduction to the Troglet family through this What's in the Box activity. So in the box, there's a letter from the Troglets, and they explain that they've been feeling quite sad and bored because it's been so quiet at school, and they want to give the children a special gift, and they would like them to make some special friendship bracelets. Activity 4, a creative activity where they think about where the Troglets might live and what they might look like, and try and make a picture of a Troglet using natural resources. Reading could be activity number 5, so a bit of a time maybe for you to have a moment to yourself. It might be that you get a reading book out too at the same time and have a little bit of time there to rest. Activity number 6, number thing. Again, these are things that you could go, oh no, I definitely don't want to do that with the group. Leave it out. You might think my group can't count to 20. They're not going to manage that. Let's count to 10 instead. Or my group can definitely manage counting to 50. So use your experience and all your knowledge, bring to that section there. And then activity 7, we're going back into games, and there's a game called Creep, and then the SAS Monster Moves, which is a printable resource produced by SAS, and Nancy is going to talk to you about that shortly. Health and well-being, reflection time, and then your songs. So I hope, go back onto video, I hope when you've got a moment to look through those resources in a calm way, that they will start to make a bit more sense. Please, if you've got any questions about those resources, just pop those questions in the chat. And what I'm going to do now is hand over to Nancy to talk you through those SAS resources. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So you may need to pin me now instead of Karen if you can't see me. I should be NM, I think, on the thing. Welcome everybody. Like Karen said, this has all come together really, really quickly. So please do bear with us as we try and do what we can to help and support you in what we do understand to be some really tricky times. So what we've tried to do, and if I share my screen with you, bear with me whilst I work the technology. This is all new to all of us, right? Here we go. Hopefully you can see. So this resource is going to be available to you to use coming out on the website and coming to you directly. So don't worry too much about taking notes. I just wanted to explain how we've laid this out together. So the resource starts really with promoting the fact that you guys can be the most creative people that need to run these activities. We've given suggestions, but it's absolutely down, and don't feel like you have to follow it. If you feel like you've got a better idea, or actually the children's interest would be better placed out elsewhere, then please do run with that. We all know that sometimes trains is a hit, sometimes rockets is a hit, sometimes dinosaurs is a hit. Whatever it would be, please do change the games to fit with how it works. We've tried to help support the themes that are coming out through this, so to support community in this first week of activities. So some of them might be a little bit tenuous, and I'm sure you'll be able to work with us on that. The first page will indicate some adaptation should you need to. So obviously we can change what we're doing, we can change the space that we work in, and gives you some ideas. So if you've got children who maybe have different needs or can't manage the task that is set, then we've given you some ideas about how you can change all of the activities. So that would be the first page. I'm going to flick past that. At the bottom of each resource, it's got a tick check for understanding, and we've tried to give you maybe some, using our own experience, some ideas of the questions you could ask, just to make sure that when you set them on task, as Karen alluded to, you don't lose the children to all four corners of your fields, because we've all been there, every single one of us. But there will be a quick check to say how you're going to understand that. On that, if I might say, the use of cones is a really good way as well of setting out your area, whether you set out just the corners to say don't go past that, or whether you specifically say, well, look, this is your grid, this is your spot to sit on, and this is where you're going to come back. It may be shortly that the line markers that come and mark out on your field, your markings, may be able to come and support by putting in socially distanced spots on your grass field, which you may decide to do, or maybe a grid system that will be your own grid for your bubble. So have a little check about how that would work. Then I've got a top tips box, which will give you the quick wins ideas about how we know we can make the game work fastest and best. And then we've got an easy, medium and hard to try and account for, actually we can't, not one size fits all. So easy will be the easiest way to play it, and obviously hard could be adaptations that even would go to as far as Key Stage 2. So the very first game, and I have done this on purpose, is to be Simon Says, because we all know the game Simon Says, and I've made it specific and really implicit that the cones and the way that you mark them out will be 2 meters apart. It says the players are 5+, but I understand you could be working in bubbles with 15, so that's easy to lay out for you, and I would probably do that in 3 rows of 5. Again, putting the markers out where you want the children to stand so that they're going to be 2 meters apart. You would be Simon in the first instance, and you would be able to come up with the game Simon Says. And I don't feel I need to explain the game Simon Says apart from this. The top tip with Simon Says is, if you've ever tried to play it with a group of children, is it's really hard to think of all of the different movements that you want to do. I like to start by having all of the group come up with at least one way that they think we could come up with a move, and then I like to choose 5 because I've got 5 fingers and it helps me to remember what they were. So as the children come up with an idea and we like it, we may well sort of say, right, so on my thumb we are going to be touching the sky, on my next finger is going to be a tuck position, and then maybe we're going to do high knees jogging is the middle finger, and we'll go through. Because it's community and this is the tenuous link, we're going to have wave and say hello to our friends. But if you can think of anything else that would fit better, then please do change it. But like I say, top tip, put 5 on your fingers because it really does help when you're trying to go through the commands. Obviously, we know if Simon says that you don't move if Simon doesn't say to do it. And if you, it's up to you. I can go either way in terms of whether you impose some sort of penalty as in run in the spot and then rejoin the game, or just ignore it and carry on because it is only fun at the end of the day. You will see that we say check for understanding. So just to check with the children, what do you do when you hear Simon Says, and what do you do if you make a mistake, if you choose to do that one. And then my top tip for this is to maybe think of a theme for the movement. So animals works really well because you can say be a monkey, be a giraffe, and they're just going to be all of those things. Or you can have superheroes or whatever theme you would like. But if you set a theme, it changes the game each time and means that it's more interesting for everyone. So that's my top tip for that game. So to make it really easy, like it says, go through the commands really slowly and give the children time to process and to make changes to their movement. Medium, you'll start to get faster, and then with hard, you know what it's like. You'll be tricky as you try and trick them into making a mistake. You'll go quite fast. So I have deliberately done Simon Says to give you the confidence to know that actually we can move the children around outside without having to worry too much about lots of equipment and having to worry about losing them across the field. My second game is the one that's referenced in Karen's worksheet there. That's called Monster Moods. Very similar to Simon Says in the way that it's laid out, and you can see that in the grid there. And again, similar to Simon Says, you will effectively be the caller at the beginning. Okay. But this one is about exploring the different moods of a monster. Okay, so you would ask everybody to think about the movement of a different type of monster. So maybe you'd ask them to think about how a happy monster might move. It can include sounds, it can be singing, it can be anything that they like. You get to choose which one you like the best, either because you're happy to recreate it yourself, or maybe it's because it's safe, because some of them will do some, like, I don't know, happy caterpillars or something on the floor. Then you would choose the one that you like the best, and you'd add that in the same way with the top tip, using your fingers to remember them. Maybe then go angry monster or sad monster, or what would a nervous monster look like, and you'll get the idea. So you're going to choose one of the children's actions and have at least 5 moves on your fingers. So again, I find that much easier to remember what they are. Then you're going to ask everyone to do tiny tiptoes on their toes, on their spot, on their cone, however you want to call that. And the children are going to then be asked to do the monster moods as you call them out. So you may call out happy monster and they'll do that one, or silly monster and they'll do that one. In between, you're going to go tiptoes, tiptoes in between, and everyone will have a chance to move between the moves. And as you put that together, you're creating your monster mood mash. Okay, so it's a good monster little workout that you've got going on there. My experience is that this obviously works really well with Key Stage 1, but it does also work with Key Stage 2 and Year 6s, because if they get to create the moves, they'll make them as energetic as they need to, or maybe as acting as they need to, and it definitely works really well. I would have to say you're going to have to enter into all of this. We will have to pull out our inner Mr. Tumble, which I know you'll be excellent at, and just play along, because it really is good fun when you can do that. So again, my check for understanding is got to put 1 exercise per finger, because it does help to remember. If you join in with the moves, they will have so much more fun, I promise you, and it works really, really well. Lots of tips around making sure you praise those that are showing the most effort, particularly if it feels like it's a tough one, it's coming to the end of the day or something. So those who are doing it, make sure you say brilliant job to them, and you'll see them come in. Or maybe you want to give a high five, a virtual high five it should be, to those with showing the most expressive monster faces. And then you can see we've got easy, medium and hard. Right, I'm not going to go through every single game that's on here, because I think I've explained the format, but just so you know the other ones that are on there, we've got a game around a Mexican wave, which is related to performing dance moves in sequence, and they'll each come up with one of those, and you can see how that's laid out there. And then to the last one is called Getting to Know You, which I think probably will be a familiar game to lots of you as well, in terms of, I would say, I am John and I jump, and then that passes to the next person who says, I am Mary and I march. I am John and I jump, and then we move round to the next person and keeps moving around, and you create a big circular dance. You can have everyone do it at the same time if you prefer, or you can just have one person do it at a time. But yeah, it's hopefully promoting community and getting to know you. I'm just going to go back onto my video. Oh, bear with me. Oh, can you see me? I can't see myself now, so I'm stuck. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I hope that that's given you a good start. I'm also planning to do some little videos about how I would set up some of these activities so that would work. And you can see just how easy it is to set up. But the main thing I would say is we've tried to keep these games as ones that you would know on purpose, so that we're able to build up confidence around how we can have the children in a space outside and it be okay. We are fully appreciating that it's a really challenging time for you all. As the guidance improves and maybe we've settled into things more. We will include more equipment because it will make it more interesting for the children, but we really didn't want to make a lot of things that you needed to clear up at the end of what will be a challenging day. So I hope you find those really easy and that the children find them really fun. That's the idea of what we've tried to pull together for you. Yeah, and if you've got any questions, like Karen says, pop them in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Just while everyone has a chance, if you want to add any questions in the chat area, I've also put in the chat area a link to all the amazing resources SASP and Nancy and Karen at Carrymore have put together. That was also sent out ahead of the training, so hopefully you got that email as well. And every Monday, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday half-day sessions are there in Word format, so you can take them if you want to adapt them or change them, you can do, but they're ready to go. And all the resources they refer to, all the things which need printing out, are also embedded in the lesson plan. So Jess went and did all of that and re-uploaded them just before today's session at 4 o'clock. So she was zooming around doing it. So you've got it ready in case you're using those next week. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. Oh.
Well, may I pose a question? I was going to say, if anyone could put in there just how they're feeling about next week, if you're brave enough to do that, that might help give us a flavour about how we can help you. What are some of your worries or concerns? And we'll definitely build those into the games as we go forward. We've got some things coming through. If you can explain why you would feel that way, that will also help us with what aspect is it that you're worried about. Thank you. I'm just reading, which is why it's quiet. It's trying to catch up on all of those. Has what Karen and what I have gone through, does that help allay any of that? I think I agree. I think the next week when you go back, it's going to take a few days just to settle down. And I would say don't pressure yourself. Go with what feels right and go absolutely with what your head teacher or your teachers are saying in terms of what they'd like you to do. But should you find yourself in a place where you need some content, hopefully you've got some here that you felt that you could use.
Just to pick out a couple of questions for you, Karen and Nancy. A few people have mentioned about just being a little bit nervous going outside and that being a place where children normally play. And I know we've put up the video from yesterday, which talked a little bit about activities to bring people together and setting up areas for bubbles. But I wondered if you had anything you wanted to mention about making it a place where it wasn't just about free flow, but structuring things a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, setting out either your cones or your markers, as Karen pointed out, is a really good one. The same as you might use the squares on a carpet or the markers on a carpet. Effectively, you're creating a bigger carpet outside with your 2 meters apart. And as I understand it, social distancing is not totally required inside your bubbles, but I think what we can do is promote that and support that. So if we can use that, then you will be able to come up with, like, remember, go back to your space or whatever is your little cue that you'll use, and then you'll be able to sort of reset your group, and that will help for other things. And I think once you do that, it does set that tone about how you're going to use the space rather than it be for free play.
Yeah, I think the way that I've structured the plans again sort of tries to make it that it's not free play just outside, that you have got set activities and they can move from one to the next. It's very structured, although you can pick and choose what you want to do from the plans, or just throw it completely out the window if you want to. But it's there as a structure, and by including those curriculum areas such as numeracy, a bit of literacy, a bit of reading, hopefully the children will then go, okay, right, so this is an extension of the classroom really at the moment. Rather than it just being a space for play. But I can totally understand that feeling of nervousness. I think everyone is doing just such a fantastic job, and schools have continued obviously throughout this. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, and know that we are here if we can be of any help whatsoever during this really difficult time for everyone. And yeah, be kind to yourself. I think that's a big message too. Make sure that you are taking time to look after yourselves, because you are your school's greatest resource, you're their greatest asset, and yeah, they need you to be feeling happy and confident and ready to be with those children.
And in terms of the resources and videos from yesterday, Bryony ran through some social distancing activities and some activities which you could use to create different bases where different young people move off to. And she also ran through some different ways to structure circle time, which might be of help. And she discussed 2 metre activities, so different activities which could reinforce that idea of how big 2 meters are. And in all the lesson plans Karen's put together, that's reinforced right at the start with reference to those type of activities. I don't know if there's any other questions. I'm scanning through to check if we've missed one. Is there anything you want to add, Nancy or Karen, which we've missed off?
Well, we're next week. We're looking at Somerset landscapes, right? And so we're coming up with games, and we'll probably just try and build on. And I think you may well see some repeats in order that we can support you with not keep giving you new content all of the time, but changing and tweaking the games to make it work with the new theme. So bear with us. We will be supporting you all the way through with resources that are meant to help you with what the current guidelines are, and we'll review those as the guidelines change.
Yeah, I think the Troglots will probably be making an appearance again next week as well. So I hope the groups that you're working with enjoy them, and enjoy being outside and working in creative ways as well. So yeah.
And I suppose I should say we're really, really keen to get feedback on what you're finding useful, because we're aware you're on the front line trying to support young people in quite a challenging time. So if we have an indication of the types of resources or format or structure of either training or of sessions, then we can respond to that. And we're trying to make sure that we're producing resources and training every week up until, well, for the next few weeks and on, if it's helpful. So if you look at a resource and just think, well, actually that's really useless, please don't do it like that, we prefer this. Or if you'd like a resource and would like more of that, or a type of training, we'd really welcome feedback. So please do help. I've noticed someone's just popped in about rain and bad weather. We briefly discussed that yesterday, and some different weather activities. But I think if it's something which would be useful, we could talk about managing weather in a bit more detail at a future training session.
I think that would be good. Also, if it stays like this week, actually the sun is going to be probably a bigger problem than the rain and the heat for the kids. So how to space your day, how to find the shade, those sorts of things, and what are your options for that will be different for each site, won't it? So yeah, just some support on that might be useful.
Yeah. I've made a note of that. And I suppose the session we tried to run yesterday, we tried to make it really interactive because we realised the community of teaching assistants is really important to support that networking. I think technology did let us down a little bit. So we've done it a slightly different way, but we still do want that feedback. I'm just... so someone's put about how will we know what courses are coming up. Do you want to answer? Sorry, Nancy.
Sorry, I wasn't going to answer that one. I was going to answer Shirley about if the child needs to go to the toilet. My understanding is that schools are setting up a little rota for that. The majority are, so there'll be frequent toilet breaks. But if you're in a bubble and you happen to be the only member of staff, as I understand it, you'll have to take them all if they really can't wait. But I know that a Key Stage 1 school that I've been talking to is planning like 15-20-minute breaks to go and wash hands and for toilets. Hopefully with that frequency, that shouldn't happen. But yes, you should always go by what your school's guidelines are for that. They will have to work that out about how they're going to do it.
And some of those bits in terms of hand washing, there's some guidance in the training yesterday, but also we've done a health and safety document which talks a little about sun shelters and talks about hand washing outdoors, and talks a little bit about how to support outdoor learning in school grounds during COVID-19. And that's already also up on the online resources area. It's on the right hand side. It's again in Word format, so your school can download it and adapt it to whatever circumstances you have and add bits or take bits away. Shall I come back to the resources? So someone's mentioned about when they'll know about which resources are going to be there. We're trying to make sure this week there's Year 1 resources, or they're already up for next week. And by the end of next week, we're hoping that Year 1 resources will be there already for the week after. We're doing the same for next week for Year 5s and 6s because they're hopefully, they might need supporting ready for return on June the 1st in terms of Year 6s. And then for the following week, we'll start Year 3 and 4 resources as well. And we're aiming to try and get resources up, before the Friday of the prior week. So you've got a chance to look at them, photocopy anything ready for the week after. And we're also trying to produce little mini videos introducing those resources. So on our plan, we've got community being the focus of all our activities next week, Somerset landscapes the week after. And there's 4 weeks of activity drafted out in our crazy plan, which we've put together over the last 3 days. Are there any other questions? Amazing. Right, well, I'll leave it for Nancy and Karen to round off because we've got our last couple of minutes before the end of our session. So I don't know if you want to finish with any key points or anything you want to conclude with.
Well, from my perspective, thank you all for being here today. It's so beautiful out there. I'm really amazed that you have taken the time to be here, and I just hope it has been of some help and that the plans do make